Eccoci, perfetto. Buonasera, buon pomeriggio a tutte e a tutti. Grazie per essere qui, grazie ai ragazzi di FashionNet per lo spettacolo che hanno fatto, per questo momento insomma di brio che ci hanno regalato. Grazie a tutti i brand che hanno partecipato dando i capi e quindi aiutando a realizzare questa performance. Grazie a Base e a chi gestisce questo luogo dove ci sentiamo sempre molto a casa e dove realizziamo insomma tanti momenti di incontro come questi. È un luogo del cuore e quindi per il Comune di Milano, per l'amministrazione, e quindi grazie anche a Base e a chi lo gestisce. Grazie a chi sta alle stand, sta realizzando tutto questo, la parte di regia, la parte di allestimento, bravissimi, la parte di diretta, quindi grazie davvero a voi. Grazie alla direzione di Economia Urbana e Sviluppo Economico, quindi qui c'è il direttore Annibale Delia, ma non solo, ci sono anche molti suoi collaboratori. Grazie a tutti, perché senza voi e senza di voi nulla di tutto questo sarebbe possibile, e quindi grazie per il lavoro che fate quotidianamente. Siamo qui per raccontare il primissimo pezzo di un progetto molto più ampio che è il piano di economia urbana e di economia circolare per la nostra città. Questa amministrazione, lo sapete, crede moltissimo nell'importanza della sostenibilità ambientale, si vuole attestare a livello internazionale, a livello europeo come una, se non la, e quindi parte subito la sfida campanilistica con gli altri paesi che sono qui presenti. Scherzo, una battuta, però sì, vogliamo veramente che Milano sia a livello internazionale, a livello europeo soprattutto, riconosciuta come una città sostenibile, una città molto attenta ai temi dell'ambiente. Lo vedete in tutte le misure che questa amministrazione, il sindaco prima di tutto, sta portando avanti, quindi con molta coerenza rispetto a quello che è stato il programma della sua campagna elettorale, sta cercando anche con tutta la giunta e tutti gli assessori per ogni ambito di riferimento di andare avanti con un programma che mette al centro, al cuore, l'economia, la sostenibilità ambientale. Noi per la gamba economia siamo qui a fare il primissimo pezzo appunto del piano che ci riguarda, che è quello dell'economia circolare, che è all'interno di un più ampio progetto che è il piano Aria Clima, quindi il piano di cui si è dotato il Comune di Milano e che subito dopo verrà raccontato, verrà presentato dalla dottoressa Padovani, e che ci vede oggi qui presenti con tantissimi start-up, con tantissime realtà, con tantissimi mondi di questo più ampio mondo dell'economia circolare che sono qui oggi a raccontarsi, a conoscersi, a far sapere che cosa fanno e soprattutto a dire a tutta la città di Milano che esiste già l'economia circolare, è già ben presente in questa realtà ed è già portata avanti da tutti gli interlocutori che espongono in questi 2 giorni e che ci racconteranno anche con dei momenti di talk, dei momenti di laboratorio molto belli, aperti ai bambini, quindi di vicinanza anche ai più piccoli, perché comunque il tema della sostenibilità ambientale, sociale e quant'altro va raccontato molto di più, va raccontato molto bene, va raccontato fin dalle basi, da chi è più piccolo, e quindi avremo in questi 2 giorni anche dei laboratori aperti ai più piccini e questa cosa credo che sia molto molto bella. La cosa più importante è anche il network tra grandi imprese, piccole realtà, associazioni di quartieri, start-up, eccetera, che può creare quel virtuosismo, quel meccanismo appunto virtuoso di rete, di sinergia, di rete, che è necessario avere, necessario fare se vogliamo vincere appunto la sfida dell'economia circolare che ci poniamo. E lo facciamo partendo da 2 settori, la moda e il design prima di tutto. Perché? Perché intanto sono i 2 settori che principalmente rendono importante Milano anche agli occhi del mondo, che ci fanno conoscere, non per niente, gli eventi principali più importanti della città, sia per le ricadute sia sull'indotto, sia proprio per l'internazionalizzazione che generano per Milano, sono proprio le Fashion Week e il Salone del Mobile con il fuorisalone, quindi la Milano Design Week. E quindi partiamo proprio da moda e design, che tra l'altro sono anche un po' 2 dei mondi dove c'è maggior consumismo, no? Dove è più facile consumare e buttare, e quindi dove andare a raccontare che Milano Circolare è la città che riduce, recupera e ricicla, non solo raccontarlo ma dimostrarlo nei fatti, è assolutamente fondamentale ed è importante avviare questo circolo virtuoso. L'altra cosa fondamentale è confrontarsi, avere dei benchmark, specie se vogliamo competere a livello internazionale. Quindi in questa occasione, in questi 2 giorni, sono ben felice che ci sia l'occasione di ospitare l'esperienza e anche le best practice, perché va detto, cioè sono anche dei casi di successo in tante altre capitali europee che è giusto ascoltare, vedere e magari anche carpire in alcuni casi e poi cercare di sviluppare il nostro piano di economia circolare per competere appunto a livello europeo come la Milano che è assolutamente sostenibile. Quindi sono ben felice di confrontarci con il mondo, ovviamente dei Paesi Bassi che ci racconta, con l'Olanda che ci racconta e avrà modo di raccontare che cosa succede nel loro paese, cosa già fanno, con Londra, Glasgow e tantissime altre città che ospitiamo in questi 2 giorni, e poi che ci sia una delle fondazioni che sulla sostenibilità è a livello mondiale un po' quella che prima si è contraddistinta e che ha sposato questa causa, che è appunto Ellen MacArthur Foundation, e che è probabilmente la fondazione appunto che è più importante al mondo su questa tematica, e quindi siamo ben felici che anche loro ci aiutino ad affrontare in questi 2 giorni la tematica e che ci aiutino poi anche a capire che cosa dobbiamo mettere un po' a terra, no? Quali sono i passi per diventare la città sostenibile che vogliamo essere da un punto di vista chiaramente economico, stiamo parlando di questo. Il nostro piano di economia circolare prende l'avvio oggi con questi 2 giorni, ma ovviamente lo scriveremo insieme. Crediamo molto, come dicevo prima, nella rete, nel network, nella possibilità di fare squadra tra paesi, fare squadra tra realtà, tra quartieri ed esperienze invece più grandi magari di imprese, tra associazioni e start-up emergenti, con l'innovazione, con la tecnologia che anche molto spesso ci aiuta. Ho visto per esempio girando di là delle cose bellissime, come si può realizzare uno skate con dei tappi, come si può realizzare una lampada con una stampante 3D partendo dalle bucce dell'arancia o comunque degli agrumi. Insomma, ci sono delle cose meravigliose che, se avrete appunto l'occasione di visitare in questi 2 giorni gli spazi, gli espositori che ci sono di là, scoprirete un mondo bellissimo che è importante far emergere perché c'è già, e quindi raccontare, far venire a galla, accendere veramente i fari su tutto quello che già esiste, e poi cercando di fare rete, cercando di fare squadra, costruire anche i prossimi passi del nostro piano. Come dicevo prima, il piano di economia circolare è all'interno di un più ampio piano che è il piano Aria Clima della città di Milano, di cui si è dotata appunto la nostra amministrazione comunale e il Consiglio Comunale ha approvato, e quindi chiamerei la dottoressa Caterina Padovani della Direzione Verde e Ambiente per raccontarci il piano Aria Clima.
Buonasera a tutti. Buonasera, ringrazio prima di tutto i colleghi di Economia Urbana e l'Assessore per averci invitati. Io faccio parte appunto della Direzione Verde e Ambiente e cercherò di introdurvi a quello che è il contesto, come ha detto adesso l'Assessora, in cui si inquadrano le azioni di Economia Urbana di cui vi parlerà poi il direttore Annibale Delia. Allora, se c'è una presentazione, non so se si può iniziare. Comunque il piano Aria Clima parla di emissioni, non vedo la presentazione, posso iniziare ma forse è utile per seguire. Comunque si parla di emissioni, quindi di emissioni sia in termini di inquinanti atmosferici che emissioni di gas serra, quindi inquinanti atmosferici, polveri, biossidi di azoto e altri, e gas serra. Quando parliamo di gas serra, grazie, allora forse devo farlo io. Qua, esatto, io guardo qua, giusto, perfetto. No. Vabbè, intanto vado avanti, poi corro vado avanti con le slide. Eccoci, perfetto. Allora, quindi parliamo, come dicevo, di emissioni. Quindi parliamo di normative quando si parla di inquinanti atmosferici e poi di impegni internazionali e non solo, quando si parla di emissioni sia di inquinanti atmosferici ma soprattutto di emissioni di gas serra, per cui non ci sono limiti ma sono impegni. Per cui il Comune di Milano ha aderito volontariamente a alcuni di questi impegni. I più famosi sono Siforti e il patto dei sindaci per quanto riguarda i gas serra e ad altri impegni sempre con Siforti per quanto riguarda l'inquinamento atmosferico e interventi di adattamento ai cambiamenti climatici. Per cui le sfide che noi ci siamo trovati, perché sono impegni sottoscritti dall'amministrazione, sono queste. In termini di qualità dell'aria dobbiamo rientrare entro i limiti europei entro il 2025 perché attualmente non sono rispettati per il PM10 e gli NO2 nella pianura padana e entro il 2050 dobbiamo raggiungere quelli che sono i valori indicati dall'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità. Per quanto riguarda le emissioni di gas serra invece dobbiamo ridurre del 45% le emissioni al 2030 rispetto al 2005 e arrivare alla neutralità carbonica entro il 2050. Nel contempo dobbiamo riuscire a contenere l'aumento della temperatura locale entro i 2 gradi con azioni di adattamento. Quindi queste sono le sfide e gli impegni da cui siamo partiti per costruire il nostro piano. Quindi ci siamo focalizzati sul punto d'arrivo, quindi come sarà Milano nel 2050. Quindi una Milano, e l'abbiamo raggruppato li abbiamo suddivisi in 5 ambiti, quindi una Milano sana e inclusiva per una città sana, equa e sicura, una Milano connessa altamente accessibile e ciclopedonale, perché per raggiungere i valori indicati dall'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità, soprattutto per le polveri, l'unica possibilità per la città di Milano, dato il contesto geografico in cui si inserisce, è quella di arrivare a eliminare la mobilità personale privata, con auto ovviamente, e trasformare tutto il resto in elettrico. Per quanto riguarda la città carbon neutral, appunto c'è l'impegno di una città a zero emissioni al 2050 e una città in grado di contrastare i cambiamenti climatici che per la città di Milano sono le isole di calore e il rischio di esondazione. Per fare questo ovviamente il Comune deve portarsi dietro tutta la città con tutti i suoi soggetti che siano cittadini, imprese, associazioni, in quanto appunto il Comune può fornire i servizi, ma affinché il cambiamento sia possibile per tutti gli attori della città. Non potendo fare un piano che ha una durata di 30 anni, perché non sarebbe plausibile, perché comunque rientrano anche l'innovazione, le normative, eccetera, il piano ha un orizzonte fino al 2030, per cui tutte le azioni che sono contenute nel piano, che sono 49, hanno una durata da qui al 2030 e sono, come dicevo, organizzate in questi 5 ambiti. Scusatemi, sono andata indietro, vediamo se riesco ad andare avanti. Ecco. Questo è il primo ambito che contiene delle azioni che riguardano i tempi della città, quindi la città con servizi a 15 minuti, poi tutta una serie di azioni che riguardano la protezione dei soggetti sensibili al sollevamento delle polveri atmosferiche. Ci sono tutte le azioni di economia circolare di cui parlerà dopo Delia, azioni di progettazione urbana sostenibile e azioni inerenti alla comunicazione del rischio climatico e per la gestione resiliente delle emergenze. Il secondo ambito invece contiene tutte quelle che sono le azioni di mobilità, per cui l'obiettivo è quello di dimezzare la mobilità personale motorizzata al 2030 e istituire una zero emission zone in un'area che potrebbe coincidere con quella della Cerchia dei Navigli. Il terzo ambito contiene tutte le azioni invece che vanno verso una decarbonizzazione al 2030 di 50% per gli edifici pubblici e un piano, una strategia per una nuova fonte di produzione dell'energia termica e per consumi di energia rinnovabile. nell'ottica di arrivare alla neutralità carbonica al 2050. E poi c'è il quarto ambito, che è quello delle azioni di adattamento, per cui ci sono azioni che mirano a implementare il verde in tutte le sue forme e a raffrescare la città, riducendo il fenomeno di isole di calore e a aumentare la superficie filtrante della città di Milano, che è molto permeabilizzata. L'ultimo ambito, che è quello per noi molto importante, su cui siamo molto attivi, siamo partiti subito, è quello appunto di sensibilizzare, coinvolgere, rendere consapevoli i soggetti della città, che sono cittadini, imprese e poi tutto quello che è il mondo dell'innovazione, perché soprattutto per quanto riguarda la decarbonizzazione e le azioni di mitigazione è fondamentale appunto andare avanti in parallelo con l'innovazione, soprattutto per quanto riguarda i combustibili, le fonti alternative. Ecco, io direi che come introduzione basta. Grazie mille a tutti e do la parola ad Annibale Delia.
Grazie Caterina. Allora, il mio compito è darvi qualche indicazione di massima e introdurvi alla prima sessione internazionale dedicata alle città circolari. Un'avvertenza importante: l'intera sessione internazionale avverrà in lingua inglese, il che significa che all'info point, all'ingresso appena dietro la tenda, è disponibile un servizio di traduzione simultanea con le cuffie che vedete gli ospiti internazionali ora stanno usando per tradurre dall'italiano all'inglese, ma ovviamente se qualcuno preferisse avere una traduzione simultanea dall'inglese all'italiano, sappiate che è sufficiente andare lì e rivolgersi all'info point. Ora, dicevo, abbiamo pensato di rinquadrare alcune informazioni che in buona parte l'assessore Cappello ha ovviamente anticipato nel suo intervento, che riguardano cosa è questo contenitore dentro cui vi trovate. Cos'è Milano Circolare? È un evento naturalmente, però questo ci porta a una domanda: perché abbiamo organizzato un altro evento? Ne succedono tanti di eventi. La cosa che ci interessa di Milano Circolare è che non è soltanto un evento, ma preferiamo immaginarlo come il percorso, come l'avvio di un percorso. Ed è un percorso che durerà per tutto il 2023, sarà un percorso di coinvolgimento ed ascolto delle imprese, degli stakeholder, delle istituzioni, degli esperti, delle università, e che come dire, è il presupposto per quel risultato che è appunto dotare la città di una strategia in materia di economia circolare. Seconda domanda: su quale argomento? Ok, moda e design circolare, l'abbiamo detto in molti modi, quindi il messaggio sarà sicuramente passato. Però anche qua permettetemi una precisazione. Voi sapete che il mondo della moda e del design, e quindi praticamente la progettazione di quasi qualsiasi cosa, è al momento interessata da un grande sforzo progettuale per fronteggiare e affrontare la sfida della circolarità e della sostenibilità. Qual è però la parte che a noi interessa particolarmente? Non soltanto il tema della moda e del design circolari, ma la risposta a questa domanda: cosa possono fare la moda e il design circolare in città e per la città di Milano? Perché è così importante questo aspetto? Perché questa nostra strategia si poggia in realtà su un lavoro fatto negli ultimi anni e che riguarda il rapporto che c'è tra la città e la fabbricazione delle cose, no? Lo abbiamo detto in molti momenti: noi non possiamo pensare a città sostenibili se non ci poniamo la domanda, se non ripensiamo a come e dove si fabbricano le cose. Cioè non possiamo immaginare che, come ci raccontano gli studiosi di metabolismo urbano, le città siano soltanto delle macchine lineari che importano prodotti fatti chissà dove ed esportano rifiuti chissà dove. Noi dobbiamo invece immaginare che le città siano un enorme giacimento di risorse che possono essere riutilizzate, riparate e rimesse in circolo. E questa cosa chiama in causa almeno 3 specifiche caratteristiche della città. Tanto per cominciare, la città è il luogo dove c'è la conoscenza, dove ci sono le università, dove ci sono i centri di ricerca. È anche il luogo dove ci sono gli headquarter di alcune anche grandi imprese, dove ci sono dei player che hanno una possibilità effettiva di entrare in gioco e mobilitare risorse importanti. Ma la città è anche il luogo del retail, dove questi soggetti vendono gran parte delle merci, ma è anche il posto dove ci sono le competenze del saper fare, dove c'è l'artigianato che va reinventato, è anche il posto dove ci sono le associazioni di quartiere che riparano. Una certa parte delle realtà che incontrate nell'exhibition, nella room 1400, sono realtà che da poco tempo hanno scoperto questa grande potenzialità nell'applicarsi ai modi di reinventare e riutilizzare quella che gli esperti di circolarità chiamano materia prima seconda. E in quale contesto si è sviluppata questa progettualità? Beh, abbiamo detto all'inizio, questo è la partenza di un processo. Ora, questo non è del tutto vero, nel senso che questo processo non parte oggi, ma si fonda su un lavoro che prima è cominciato sui temi della manifattura urbana e che ha incontrato le opportunità di un progetto europeo che si chiama Centrinno. Vedete in tutti i materiali ci sono questi loghi, Manifattura Milano, Centrinno e la collaborazione con NEMA, ed è importante spiegare di che si tratta. Da un paio d'anni a questa parte il Comune di Milano sta coordinando un consorzio di 27 partner internazionali che coinvolge 9 città europee, tra cui Amsterdam, Copenaghen, Parigi, Barcellona, Ginevra, che sono delle città pilota, che come Milano stanno ragionando dei sistemi per passare a delle forme di valorizzazione della materia prima seconda presente nelle città, in particolare in relazione all'utilizzo di ex spazi industriali rigenerati e recuperati. E noi siamo dentro un ex spazio industriale recuperato, sapete, questa è l'ex fabbrica Ansaldo, che adesso è il progetto base, e ci fa particolarmente piacere che partner del progetto, quindi in piena parità con il Comune di Milano, ci sia anche una rete di imprese che si chiama NEMA, che è costituita proprio da base, insieme a 2 storici Fab Lab della città che sono Open Dot e WeMake, ma anche da Cariplo Factory e anche da Acube, una alleanza di realtà locali che insieme al Comune di Milano stanno portando avanti questa progettualità, e naturalmente insieme al Comune di Milano e a tutti i colleghi che sentitissimamente ringrazio, quindi mi associo completamente alle parole dette dall'assessore Cappello in apertura. Però, e l'abbiamo detto molte volte, questo percorso ha incontrato un percorso più grande, che è il percorso del piano Aria Clima, che è stato benissimo raccontato da Caterina Padovani pochi istanti fa, e stiamo parlando di alzare le ambizioni, diciamo, cioè di passare da una sperimentazione a una vera e propria strategia che dovrà accompagnare le azioni del Comune di Milano da qui al 2030, con cui stiamo lavorando insieme a moltissimi colleghi, con l'ambizione di dotare il Comune di Milano di un piano d'azione sull'economia circolare, in particolare nei settori della moda e del design. Ci sono anche altri ambiti del piano di economia circolare che riguardano l'edilizia, per esempio il cibo, oppure il retail, e questo sarà oggetto di un lungo percorso che parte in questa campagna di ascolto nel 2023. Ultime 2 cose che ho da dirvi: da dove abbiamo pensato di cominciare? Ora, sapete, c'è una consolidata abitudine a pensare che la prima cosa che è necessaria fare quando si parte con un progetto sia fare una mappatura, e questo è sacrosanto, è molto corretto. Noi abbiamo pensato, oltre ad una mappatura, e quindi oltre a tutte le realtà che grazie al progetto Centrinno abbiamo incontrato negli scorsi mesi, di cominciare da un invito aperto. Ecco, questo non so se siamo riusciti bene a spiegarlo, ma tutte le realtà che avete incontrato nell'exhibit, nella Room 1400, ma anche i ragazzi di FashionNet che hanno presentato un mix di collezioni di moda indipendente in collaborazione con una scuola di danza, Move On, così come tutte le realtà che prenderanno parola nei talk previsti domani o che si sono svolti nel primo pomeriggio, sono tutti soggetti che non sono stati invitati, hanno alzato la mano, hanno risposto a un invito del Comune di Milano e hanno voluto essere qui per mostrare o raccontare quello che stavano facendo. E ci piace molto pensare che il punto di partenza di un programma e di un piano non sia un gruppo di esperti che ragiona, ma sia una moltitudine di pratiche che possono essere una straordinaria ispirazione poi per fare dei piani veramente efficaci e veramente partecipati. Chi si può incontrare oggi e domani? Quando abbiamo lanciato questo call non sapevamo bene chi ci avrebbe risposto e quanti, ci hanno risposto più di 100 realtà milanesi. Siamo rimasti veramente colpiti dalla quantità di esperienze, anche alcune radicate, ma moltissime nate da molto poco tempo. È come se in questo momento l'urgenza di ragionare di economia circolare stesse in qualche modo interessando una sorta di vibrazione che c'è in città, la necessità di cogliere questa sfida, di provarci, di inventare, di sperimentare, e il risultato di tutta questa sperimentazione lo potete vedere nell'altra sala o lo potete incontrare domani. Però a noi piace pensare che oltre a una serie di esperienze, questa cosa sia una comunità di pratiche e di apprendimento, cioè una serie di persone che non solo si occupano del loro progetto, ma in qualche modo aderiscono a una scommessa un po' più grande che naturalmente riguarda tematiche straordinariamente importanti come il benessere e la vivibilità di questa città per i prossimi anni. Ora, perché ci tengo a sottolineare questo aspetto? Perché tutte le realtà coinvolte in questo evento, ma anche quelle, ne ho incontrate parecchie che hanno scoperto forse anche solo oggi, che c'era Milano Circolare, sono caldissimamente invitate a partecipare alla conversazione. C'è un sito dedicato che è manifattura.milano.it. A breve pubblicheremo una mappa per mostrare come in città queste realtà sono distribuite e per fare in modo che questo patrimonio di contatti sia patrimonio di tutti. E infine, che cosa succede durante questi 2 giorni? Lo sapete. Non lo sapete da un programma stampato perché abbiamo deciso di non stampare nulla. Quindi l'idea è, visto che si tratta di un evento sulla circolarità, di non generare carta stampata quando è forse più semplice inquadrare un QR code, lo trovate un po' ovunque, quindi l'invito è a consultare e a incuriosirvi, diciamo, delle molte esperienze che ci sono e scoprire, oltre la composizione del panel di oggi pomeriggio, anche il ricchissimo programma di domani. Ricordo che domani a partire dalle 11 c'è il secondo panel internazionale, quello di oggi è dedicato alle città, quello di domani è dedicato alle esperienze, poi ci sono oltre 50 espositori, ci sono dei laboratori pratici anche per bambini o anche per professional dedicati a persone che progettano o che lavorano nel campo della sostenibilità o che vogliono trasformare la propria impresa da un modello lineare a un modello circolare, quindi l'invito è a sfogliare il programma e forse un invito un po' più come dire, caloroso è quello di incuriosirvi del contenuto dei progetti, perché guardate, a colpo d'occhio le cose possono anche sembrare delle collezioni di moda, no? Oppure degli oggetti di design, invece se sono qui vuol dire che sono passati al vaglio di una selezione rispetto all'interesse che quello specifico progetto aveva rispetto ai temi della circolarità. E infine l'idea che in questi 2 giorni naturalmente ci sono i talk, ci sono i laboratori, ci sono le presentazioni, ci sono le esposizioni, ma noi pensiamo a questo posto come un luogo di incontro, di collaborazione e di reciproca ispirazione. È anche per questo che davvero mi associo all'assoluto ringraziamento alla Fondazione Ellen MacArthur, alle altre realtà internazionali come lo United Repair Center, agli amici di Amsterdam che sono qui, perché ispirarsi è esattamente un modo per osservarsi a vicenda e immaginare di poter, come dire, trovare delle nuove strade per affrontare questa sfida. Noi lo diciamo in maniera sintetica così: se parliamo di economia circolare vuol dire insieme, e questo è esattamente un contesto pensato per fare le cose insieme. Qui mi fermo e quindi apro molto volentieri il panel internazionale dedicato alle città circolari e sono particolarmente contento di invitare la collega Liat Rogel, Project Manager del pilota Centrino di Milano, che si occuperà di moderare il panel. A te Liat, grazie.
Grazie Annibale e grazie a tutti per essere qui, e da questo momento in poi anch'io parlerò in inglese. Ricordo a tutti che se avete bisogno ci sono delle cuffie all'ingresso. Thank you everyone for being here and thank you for the introduction. I don't know if our international guests can imagine the emotion that we have now today in this event, because we have been working on the event for many months, but as Annibale mentioned before, we also have been working on this community for about 2 years. So 2 years that we are trying to figure out what is happening in Milan, who is working, who is doing what, and also how we can help. So as Centrino Project, as the Municipality of Milan, how we can assist the creation of an ecosystem of stakeholders that can really make the circular economy meet the city needs. So we have been working on this for a long time and seeing what is going on in the other room and really talking to people and getting also the emotion from them. For me it is really exciting. And now my role here is to move from something very local, so what you've seen until now in the presentation, and the fact that Milan is just starting to build a plan for the circular economy, and again, discovering what we have, to hearing from different cities that are already working, some of them for many years, on these topics and have plans in place. So we will hear from Glasgow, we will hear from London, we will hear from Amsterdam, and we will hear the experience of other different cities in a European project. Before all of that, we are very happy to have with us Josh Newton from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And I want to say something about that because it's also very interesting to know that there is a person in the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that is responsible for city activation. And this means that he has a role of helping cities, assisting cities to advance on their policies and to make demonstrations happen, to bring cities together so that they can share the knowledge and then can actually help each other to become more circular. And I think that for us, this is a really good opportunity to have Josh introduce this panel and explain what they do in the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, but especially the role of cities. So what is really the role of a city inside that, and how to create partnerships between companies and cities. I'm going to call Josh in a second, and afterwards we will hear the experiences from the different cities. Josh Newton, floor is yours. And yes, and then
yeah, great. Ciao tutti. I think I said that right. Yeah, I should start with an apology that I am English and my Italian is very bad. So yeah, thank you for bearing with me. I'll try and speak slowly. I do have a habit of getting quite passionate, and so I might talk very quickly. If so, I encourage you all to shout out and tell me to stop or slow down, or just smile and wave, maybe. So today I'm here to talk to you about the circular economy. I have about 15 minutes. I'm going to give us all in the room a foundation on which we can build on. I'll introduce you to the principles, which hopefully many of you are aware of already. I will talk about the role of cities, and then I'll share some trends that I see and we see in our work, working with cities, and some of the opportunities that Milan can build on. So, I work at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. We are a network of around 3,000 organizations around the world, some of the world's biggest businesses that you can see listed there and some cut off, as well as innovators, researchers, universities, cities, governments, and international institutions. And our role is to develop and promote the idea of a circular economy. Specifically, our work in cities is to inspire you, to engage you, and ultimately to help you mobilize and recognize that it's not just city governments, it's innovators, it's citizens, it's NGOs, all of you in the city ecosystem have a role to play. And these are just some of our frameworks, toolkits that we build our thought leadership on. So, the format, anyway. The best way to describe the circular economy is to start by reflecting on what we live in today, which is a linear economy. We take things out the ground, we make things, we use them often for a very short period of time, and then when we're done with them, we throw them away. And that system has lots of negative impacts to the environment and to social, but these are four that I'd really like to emphasize. So, firstly, waste. We know that something like 12 million tons of plastic is leaked into our oceans every year. That plastic goes into our fish, it goes into us. We still don't fully understand the implications of that. We also know something like 1/3 to 40% of all food that is grown in the world is wasted. Food that could go into hungry mouths, but instead is lost. Underutilized assets and economic losses is a nice tongue twister, but we emphasize this because it's not just waste. We need to think about the things that we actually use and have in play at the moment, and fundamentally from an economics perspective, we are not capturing all the value that we possibly could from the things that we have. Cars sit stationary for 92% of the time. Things like a drill, on average, are used for something like 12 minutes before they are thrown away. They'll sit in a cupboard and they will be underutilized. And if we think about the materials, the intensity that it's taken to extract those materials, make that, and then to just throw it away, it's just a waste of money, a waste of value, things that we could recover. Price risks and supply chain volatility. So we all know the impacts of the of the Russian war and Russian invasion at the moment, but there was also the gas crisis before that, and our over-reliance on long global supply chains, relying on virgin raw materials, means that we as cities, anywhere in the world, are susceptible to shocks if something in another part of the world happens. So if we can, we'll come on to how the circular economy can tackle that. And then finally, climate change and biodiversity loss. I will again talk about how the circular economy can tackle these as well. So that was the linear economy. In contrast, this is the circular economy. If I can leave you with one thing today, it is to always remember these three principles and use these as your guiding star for everything you do. So the first principle is eliminate waste and pollution. We need to think about eliminating the negative environmental impacts that our activities create. Removing carbon from the atmosphere, removing toxins like plastics that don't need to be produced, and removing chemicals from fertilizers that, again, are having an adverse effect on our growing and food production. The second principle is circulating products and materials. And the idea of this is keeping things in use for as long as possible at their highest value forever. We do that through circular business models, which I think some of those we saw in that other room. We're talking about repair, reuse, remanufacture, and I would stress that recycling is the very last option. So we need to think about the higher activities, reducing, rethinking, reuse, okay? And then finally, regenerating nature. So in contrast to creating waste, we should be ensuring that when we get to the end of life of any product, it can be returned to nature as food for nature rather than as poison to the planet. I will leave you just remember these three principles: eliminate, circulate, regenerate. And I will also stress the design element. We talked about design earlier, and I will emphasize design because the linear economy externalities that we talked about, none of these are here through accident. They're all here because of choices that we make in our economic system. And so if we can design a better system using these principles, we can avoid those negative externalities. So, applying those three principles to climate change, in 2019 we published a paper that looked at someone's in the way. Anyway, we looked at global emissions, okay? And we found that around 55% of global emissions are linked to our energy system. So our reliance on fuel, oil and gas, and the need to transition from that to better forms of energy, renewables, solar, wind. But we still have another stubborn 45% of emissions, and that's driven by how we use land, how we extract things, and how we make and use products. So the point of this is to show that if we want to get to net zero, if we want to get to climate neutrality, we cannot do it through an energy transition alone. We need to think about how we use and make products and use land. And that's where the circular economy comes in. If we can apply the three principles that we talked about, we can turn that 45% into 22%. So the point is that a circular economy is not just a nice to have, it's an essential part of net zero and beyond. We are also not just in a climate emergency, we're in a nature and a biodiversity emergency. And what we've done here is track how in the last 50 years we've lost something like 60% of biodiversity, okay? And we can take steps like increasing conservation and restoration efforts, but the impact of that can halt biodiversity, but it won't stop it. It won't stop biodiversity loss. Only through transforming how we use our land, making it a place where nature can thrive, can actually reverse biodiversity loss. And we've linked 90% of biodiversity loss with the linear economy. So, it not only helps tackle net zero, it also helps tackle biodiversity loss and improve nature. So what do cities have to do with this? As I said, these three principles, the work that I do at the foundation is to think about how we turn these three principles into action at a city level. So we ask these questions, which I won't read out to you. But by asking these internally, we found that through applying the circular economy in cities, we can unlock a whole range of benefits, not just environmental, but economic and social. We can create cities to be more thriving, livable, and resilient. We can help them become more thriving through using circular business models that improve productivity. And by reducing cars on the road and improving that efficiency, we can also create more livable environments which are less polluted. There is improved air quality. The idea, again, of circular business models that allow us to share and access rather than own mean that there is greater social interaction among us all. And then finally, resilient. We become less reliant on global supply chains because the idea is that we're reusing the materials that already exist in our cities. Cities are material banks. and that we can, by reusing them, also support more local, decentralized, distributed production in our cities. It's not easy, but this is where we want to get to, okay? So I'm not going to talk about lots of examples because we're going to hear some from really great cities that are doing things better than I can talk about. But I will simply stress that the circular economy applies to every system, and it's great that we're prioritizing fashion and design, but also we need to think about how circular economy applies to buildings and homes, construction, how it applies to mobility, and how it applies to food. And I am in the city of one of the best food policies in the world, so you've already got that covered. You can learn and build on that and see how you can apply it to other systems, and that's one of my recommendations. And I would stress, as we talked about, you want to start with a vision and a route map or a strategy to help set the direction of travel, but that's not the only thing the city can do or other actors in the system can do. You need to think about engaging, so convening and partnering, building capacity. You want to think about your urban management, so how you're using your assets, spending money through procurement, through planning. And then finally, you want to incentivize. We need to make the economics work of a circular economy. It will not succeed if taxation is still built on linear systems. Okay, I've got 2-3 more slides, I think. Am I okay? Right, so next week, very excitingly, is the first report of the European Circular Cities Declaration. This Cities Declaration is currently signed by 73 cities across Europe. Some of the biggest, like Paris, some of the smallest, like Guimarães in Portugal. And we've reviewed the first year reporting from it and learned from 40 cities on what they're doing on the circular economy. That is the widest assessment of circular economy in cities to date in Europe, which is very exciting. And these are the lessons that we've taken from these 40 cities. Firstly, over half of the cities have a circular economy route map or have one in development. Second, construction and food are the most focused on material streams. That doesn't mean that the others aren't important. In fact, it means that there are opportunities for cities to build out what those material streams and what interventions can look like in those cities and make that distinctive. Be the leader, be the pioneer in that system, like fashion, textiles. Thirdly, stakeholder engagement, planning, and procurement are the most often used levers. So these are baseline. You need to think about how you embed them into this strategy. And finally, economic incentives and regulation are more complex tools that are often you're not able to do. So we're challenging cities to think about how they can actually incorporate those into plans. Citizen awareness is becoming a lot more sophisticated. We're no longer just trying to tell citizens what to do. That's not what we want to do at all. We need to empower citizens, give them the skills, give them the tools to be leaders in this transition, give them skills, help them know how to repair, how to reuse. And then finally, I think this is a great theme that will be coming across in the next 2 days, but cities have a vital role in stimulating innovation. They need to work with the innovators, like many of you in the room, and we need to be prepared to trial novel partnerships. It's not the role of the city to deliver half of this stuff. We actually want the market to step in and play a role and make this work financially. And on the right here, I've just got some really good examples across Copenhagen, Haarlem, in Holland, the Circuit project involving London and Copenhagen, and La Machinerie in Grenoble. So this is an intervention in a hub, a bit like this, where there's a concierge service. So if anyone has something broken, you can take your toaster and you can be like, how can I get this fixed? And ultimately that helps us displace the need for new toasters or new drills or anything, and it builds that empowerment and it engages communities. And I think that that's a really important part of every community that we need in every neighborhood. Okay. Yeah, 2 more slides. So these are the key challenges I'll leave you with. The first thing to stress is silo thinking. Lots of cities think in silos. We have one department doing one thing and another department doing another. It's really important that we have an integrated, all-of-government approach. So it's really essential that the city thinks about that. Second, while it is very important to have a strategy, I am sick of strategies, and we actually need action. We've got until 2030, 2040, 2050 to actually do the hard work, and we can't push it up, put it off. We actually need to find those quick wins. We need to start doing it, learn by doing, and taking an agile approach. Third, measuring circularity is very difficult. This is an area of work that we're exploring at the moment, and I know lots of others are. You can't just measure circularity through waste levels or emissions. We need to look at kind of the opportunities, the emergence of innovators, the number of businesses that have circular business models in the city. So we need to think boldly and new about how we actually measure circularity. And then thirdly and fourth, shifting the linear paradigm. So can we have a circular city within a linear economy? It's going to be hard. So actually the city's role is not just about changing the circular economy in the city, it's about thinking bigger. It's about having advocacy and engaging with the Italian government in Milan's case, engaging with the EU. Advancing circular economy across the system involves engaging everyone at every level. I will end, hopefully that has been clear and okay, but I will just say that the foundation is an open network. We invite all of you to join it. You can join by accessing our community platform on emf.org. And then finally, we personally invite the Foundation Milan to sign and join the Circular Cities Declaration, which would be a good statement of intent and a commitment to join all the cities in Europe that are helping lead the way. So I'll end there. Thank you so much.
Josh, thank you so much for that. I invite you to stay on the stage and so that you can participate and see the other presentations, and also a little bit for gender balance, because I'm going to call 4 women to the stage to join us. Eileen Crowley, Rosemary Raucrock, sorry for pronunciation, Alison McRae, and Sarah Malone. And thank you for being here. We are honored to have you and to hear from your experiences and to tell you a little bit about ours. So really it is a pleasure. And I'm going to start by introducing Eileen. Eileen Crowley, coming from urban planning, is helping cities to not only to create plans, but also to create projects, funded projects. And all those projects are in the topic of sustainable development. And we asked you to come today to speak about a specific project, with the Urbact project, where you had the chance to follow 9 cities that, through a 30-month project, were actually writing plans for the circular economy. And the interesting thing is that the cities came from very different starting points. And so, as to continue what Josh was telling us about the role of cities and what they could do, would be really interesting to hear from you about the specific and concrete experience. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Liat, and thank you all for having me here. As Liat said, I have had the pleasure over the last 2.5 years of supporting 9 cities across Europe. Our work came under the umbrella of the Resourceful Cities project, funded through the Urbact programme. So as I said, we were 9 cities that came together with one key objective, and that was to accelerate the transition to the circular economy in each city through the development of urban resource centres. The cities were very diverse. We had The Hague, Oslo and Mechelen, who were quite far along on their circular economy journey. But then we had cities like Bucharest, like Opole, like Cáceres, where, you know, it was quite a new term and they didn't have a lot of stakeholders active here. So what is an urban resource centre? Well, it's a space really where people can come together from across sectors and society to actively accelerate the circular transition. What I really like about it is that it's a really flexible concept, so it applies to cities such as Oslo, that are quite far advanced in the circular economy, but it's also really valid for cities that are just starting out. So I suppose the first thing that we did in our work was to look around at other cities and see what kind of urban resource centres were out there. Here's two examples. We have on the left a very basic example, which is simply a mini recycling station in Oslo. And quite simply, people can come, drop things off that they don't need, and others can collect them. The one on the right has a more community focus, and it's located in a really diverse neighborhood in Oslo. So they run things like repair cafes. As you can see here, there's a textile repair, bike repair, computer repair. And the really nice thing is that it brings really diverse sectors of society together. So you have old people coming together with young people, and it's shown that it's really developed social bonds in the area. Here's another one. This one is in Mechelen in Belgium. And the focus here, where we have a lot of circular economy stakeholders and businesses, is to provide a space where they can all come together, network, cluster. So ultimately, this building here on the left, it's an old laundry building, and it's being developed right in the city centre as a space for these circular businesses. Businesses such as these. This guy on the left produces coasters and chopping boards from old pieces of wood that you can see. And this lady on the right has a very successful textile company, and she works with a lot of mass producers of textiles who have goods that they can no longer sell. She'll upcycle them, and they go back to the market. So the second thing that the cities did, and I think it's really important, is to know and nurture your ecosystem. Who are the people that are active in the circular economy? How do they interact with each other? Is there interaction, or are they not speaking to each other at all? And the idea is to understand who's out there, bring them together in one room, such as this. And of course, that's all great, having people together, but with lots of different ideas, how do you go forward? So one thing we did was we tested various actions in each of the cities. If you're interested, there's a summary of those actions on our website. But this was a really valuable idea because cities could test certain ideas that were brought forward, measure them, see if they were successful, and then decide to upscale them or reject them. I'm going to talk about two examples of those tests now. So this one is from Famalicão in Portugal. And they looked at what was already in the city. So they wanted to create a zero waste market from their municipal food market that was already there. The idea was to have a test bed for practical new solutions for waste management in the city. They wanted to promote changing values, and I think they did this. So over a period of 9 months, they had 17 different workshops. They worked with local traders. They developed a circular exhibition to showcase businesses. And what I really liked about it is that a lot of examples of industrial symbiosis came about because of that. Here's another example from Poland. So here they realized that they really needed to raise awareness, empower citizens. So they worked together with their local community to take this vacant space, which is right in the city centre. They worked with their art school, art and design school, to redesign the interior of that space. And they ran a series of repair workshops, but also it became a space where people could drop off unused goods and others could collect them. So after only 1 month of operation, they had more than 7 tons of resources brought to the centre, and 6.4 tons were taken away. So I think that can be deemed quite a success. There were over 7,000 visitors, and the city has maintained the operation of that space. They even won 2 national awards for local government. And they're now looking to source a bigger space for bulky goods such as unused furniture because it has been so successful. Through that process of getting to know the ecosystem, looking around to other cities for examples, and testing different actions, the 9 cities, 9 very diverse cities, managed to develop these action plans together with their stakeholders. And even though they're all quite diverse, they all focused on these 5 key areas of intervention. And the city councils in each of the cities saw that they had an important role to play in each of these 5 areas. So they included awareness raising and communication, capacity building, education and participation, physical and digital infrastructure, entrepreneurship, business and innovation support. Of course, this might look very different in Famalicão in Portugal, which has a textile cluster, and they're experimenting with novel technologies, to how it will look in Ciudad Real, where the focus is on helping businesses understand the circular economy and how they might be able to adapt their own businesses to become more circular. And then the 5th area was governance and leadership. So even though we finished our work late last summer, we did sign a memorandum of understanding to agree to continue to work and share information on this topic, because all of the cities found it incredibly useful and it helped them progress. That is open to anyone. If you are interested, just let me know. You can find more information on our website here, and you have my contact details here. So that's all my story, Liat. I'll hand over to...
Thank you very much, Eileen. And I really, I know very well the testing actions that were done in the network, and I really suggest everyone who is interested in that to go and see, because there were pretty small actions that managed to actually move things around the city and to demonstrate that things are possible. So that's great that it's in the website. I'm gonna pass to Rosemary, actually. No, that's fine. We take it in different steps. And if you go to the next slide, then you can see your name. And I'm going to introduce Rosemary, saying that she comes from the textile field, actually starting as a textile buyer, and then discovers the fashion for fair trade, fair production, and supply chains. So how you really get passionate about textile from this point of view, and then take it over to innovating companies, working a lot for the fashion production, and then finally arriving also to touch upon policy, especially with the European project, Reflow. And for the city of Amsterdam, what is really interesting to hear from you today is, first of all, Annibale touched about it before, the mapping. So how do you map flows, and how do you understand through flows what are the different issues around? And maybe also a little bit about the challenges, because we talked about it before, and the textile waste is not such a huge number right now, so maybe it's not the first priority. But with some rules and regulation entering, like the extended responsibility of the producers, this becomes quite urgent. So I pass you the word to tell us a little bit about Amsterdam and textile. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. So I was the project lead of the Reflow project. Reflow project was also here in Milano, but then on food waste. And the Reflow project started by discarding textiles. So citizens, they wear textiles, there are a lot of retails in the city, and then after that they are wearing the textiles, they are thrown away. In the Netherlands, there's a policy that cities, they have to give the opportunity to put the textiles in a textile bin in the city. In Amsterdam, there are more than 400 textile bins all over the cities. We have more than 900,000 inhabitants in the city, and of course in every area of the city it's differently discarded. Therefore, we mapped where the textile is going. So we mapped from the start that textiles is coming into the Netherlands, and that is the first line you see. And we see that the Dutch people, they love cotton. Differently than in America, because in America you can see that there's 60% of polyester, and we love cotton still. I'm very happy about that. And the next lines is the flow of the materials, how it enters in the Netherlands, how it comes into the city, where it goes. And after with the red lines, you can see there how the textile is discarded. So in every area it's differently, and then it's also very important why there are so much differences. In Amsterdam we have more than 256 different kind of countries where people come from. So all these languages, all these people, they come to Amsterdam, and they have to understand that textile can be discarded after that they are using in the textile bin. But we saw that in different kind of areas in Amsterdam, people are throwing away a lot of things, or there are no textiles in textile bins. And to understand how it was, why it was so, students, they went into the streets to talk also with the people. But to understand, we asked to the citizens if they know that there are textile bins in the city, and why they throw away the textiles, and if they use second-hand. And this is the first picture you see. And we understood that most people nowadays do not know anything about textiles. They don't read labels. They don't know where it's made. They don't know where it's made, who it made. So there's a lack of knowledge about textiles. So there's like I say here on the screen, is really a disconnection with the ecosystem. And then we mapped who is doing what in the city, because we know that there are collectors, sorters, there are a lot of tailors in the city. There are some markets who are selling fabrics. Who is doing what? And we came out with more than 600 people or companies who are working in the textile industry around Amsterdam. But Amsterdam is also very well known as where the headquarters are from big brands. There are a lot of universities, also about management, but the knowledge about textiles is more in different places in the Netherlands, and how to approach the citizens and the industry and the policy together. So while we are researching this, we wrote it all down, and we start to make a textile wheel. And the starting point was also from discarding the textile and who is doing what and what kind of phases you see in the textile supply chain after discarding your textiles. But then there was COVID. And suddenly all the textile bins has to close down. And in the Netherlands, most of the cities, they closed the textile bins. But in Amsterdam, we did not do that. The textile bins stayed open. And in the harbor of Amsterdam, we rent a really big place. And in 3 months' time, 1.5 million textile was collected and was stored in this warehouse. And suddenly the press, but also the citizens, they start to understand, wow, we discard a lot of textiles in 3 months' time. And students, the journalism, they were all interesting for, and now where we have to go there. So we asked the citizens and we asked the industry, who is going to help Amsterdam to solve this problem? Because it are so many materials, we are throwing away so much, and because of the climate change and because the aim of Amsterdam to become already in 2030 100% circular, you have to do a lot. So we did also a lot of workshops with repair, because that is the low-hanging fruit, of course, of the R ladder and on circularity. Because we also in the booklet, we found out that 30% what's already in your closet, it's there because it's needed to be repaired. And if you don't repair it, you don't go to a tailor, it stays there, and at the end, the marketing of all these fast fashion brands, they tackle you and to say, come on, buy your new thing. So you buy something new, but maybe it's a replacement of your most wanted garment you have already in your closet. So therefore, also this repair cafes and to revalue and upcycle workshops, we started. We start to find a network with tailors in the city of Amsterdam and to help people in poverty to let them repair their clothes by themselves through this network. We have a lot of tourism in the city of Amsterdam, and Amsterdam is very widely, so we start also to make a conscious shopping route where already more than 120 shops and retailers and repair cafes are on the map, and also the textile bins are over there. And during COVID we asked who can help us, and the swap shop was the winner of the challenge we asked to help us. And the swap shop is a very nicely made retail shop. All the interior is made of old textiles, and they swap clothes, so they clean up, they repair, and they swap, especially in the neighborhood. And the nicest thing is lately, that because this started in 2020, that now in the neighborhood where the swap shop is, all the citizens, they got a letter that the textile bins, they go out of the street and they only can bring in the textiles in this swap shop. And to collect indoor, it's better than to collect within a textile bin, because in textile bin also citizens, they throw away waste, and that's a pity, of course, for the textiles. So we did a lot of live cast online, all are in Dutch, so but we tackle everything on repair, but also with policy makers, also for the Dutch government, how we have to use the extended producer responsibility who's coming up, and what kind of information they need to make a good one. And then we found the coalition of the willing. And that's also here on the market, it's the coalition of the willing, and who wants in the city to work with us together on to become circular together. So we, because of the mapping, we reached out to different kind of industries, the bed, bath, linen industry, the workwear, the suppliers to the municipality, but also the fashion brands to work together on this 10 green deals of circular textiles. As I said, there's a lot of cotton in the Netherlands, and Amsterdam is also well known as the denim city, of the city of denim. The city of denim, sorry, and we have a nice place where also the denim city is there, and with 6 brands of the Netherlands like PVH, Scotch and Soda, Mud Jeans. We signed a denim deal with them, but also with their supply chain, to come in the end of this year with 3 million jeans, where 20% post-consumer, so the textiles discarded by the people, is within in this fabric. And I have to say it's very positive. So we talk also with the policy. So we start also in Amsterdam to collect differently. Also to start with the social enterprise who was sorting the first sorting. And then we start to work with a sorter and not to do everything at one company. Then, of course, of COVID, we start also with a circular isolation gown. So we want to start a campaign, but this will follow up in a few years. And then we end up in last year in a roadmap for Amsterdam region on circular textiles, and we have there 10 goals where we work together on with the industry, policy, and citizens.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. This was really inspiring, both on the community creation and also the very concrete actions that you show here that are possible and that are being made in Amsterdam. I'm also curious to know how this will continue, you know, now. And I think that for us, as an exchange between Milan and Amsterdam, the textile bit could be really, really interesting. So thank you for that. Thank you. Sarah. Welcome. Sarah is the Senior Advisor and Textile Lead for Re-London. She will explain better than I do what is Re-London, but it is important to say that it's a partnership between the Mayor of London and London boroughs that is born to improve waste management and to take upon more circular strategies. It's interesting to hear from Sarah, because London has a plan in place since 2017. So it's quite interesting to know now what has happened since the plan. And another interesting point that is a good connection between Milan and London is that Sarah is going to speak a little bit about what is Re-London and what they do, and give an example of how to move from a good strategy on the food sector towards the one on textile. And actually Milan has a quite strong food policy, and now we're talking about circular economy in fashion and design, so I think they're pretty good connections there. So thank you, Sarah, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, and thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to talk today about the work that we're doing in London. And it's just really great to be here in person and not talk to you through a screen, so that's fantastic. Great, so as we've just said, I'm Sarah, I'm a Senior Advisor and Textiles Lead for Re-London, and I won't go through what I'm about to talk about, I'll just launch straight in. So Re-London is a partnership of the Mayor and the London boroughs to improve waste management and resource management in the city, but also to accelerate our transition to a circular economy. We are a statutory body. We were actually set up by central government, the Department for Environment and Rural Affairs, and we were set up to support both the Mayor and the 33 independent boroughs that you can see here on the screen to deliver on the London environment strategy to reduce waste and improve recycling. So it's our mission to revolutionise our relationship with stuff by working with businesses to embrace circularity, to work with London boroughs to provide practical advice at both a local and city level, and to educate Londoners through behaviour change campaigns to encourage recycling and minimise waste and generally normalise circular behaviours. So that's a bit about who we are. And as I said, we were set up to support both London's boroughs and the Mayor to reduce waste and increase recycling in the city. And essentially that's why we launched a circular economy route map to support these objectives back in 2017. And so through a series of facilitated workshops, we developed an action-orientated route map. And this acted as a sort of guiding document and first step in our journey to a low-carbon circular London. And I think it's really important to note that since we launched this route map, we've actually developed our thinking to move away from thinking solely about waste and recycling, but to also look at the link between the circular economy and emissions. And so we've been developing sector-specific action plans with the London boroughs and embarked on a series of research to measure material flows, which I'll talk about a bit later. But to look at the plan, so we identified 5 focus areas for our circular economy plan or route map. These are food, fashion, plastics, the built environment and electricals, and these were selected because of their high environmental impact, but also the opportunity for reuse, and essentially because they're both the cause of a problem, but also the source of a solution. And so we had identified those 5 priority sectors, and then we split out our plan into different sections covering each of these sectors, and we looked at the opportunity in each of those sectors that the circular economy presents. We looked at what the key challenges are, what's happening already, and what practical actions could move us forward in London. And what I wanted to note was that we developed each of these sections with sector-specific experts and experienced stakeholders, so that when we put across these actions, it would encourage them to sign up and support us in our transition to a low-carbon circular economy. So that's a bit about the different sections, and we also identified 8 cross-cutting themes that we feel are critical to enable the right conditions for the circular economy to flourish in London. I won't go into too much detail, but these are communications. So we feel that the benefits of a circular economy need to be communicated widely to ensure greater adoption. Collaboration, so we need collaboration right across the supply chain within the sector in London, but also collaboration strategically between cities and at a local community level. Policy, so the circular economy can support the delivery of the commitment set out by the Mayor of London to reduce waste and reduce emissions, but it's vital that the development of a circular economy is actually incorporated in London's policy framework. Procurement's a big one, so public sector procure goods and services all the time, so it's important that they challenge the industry to develop innovative and new circular solutions that both reduce our reliance on resource, but also are financially attractive. Finance, so access to affordable capital is vital in the transition. Business support, often implementing or expanding circular business models can be complicated or resource intensive, especially for smaller businesses that have limited capacity. So providing practical support and support networks will really help in that journey to move from linear to a circular business model. Innovation is key, and then demonstrator and pilot projects are a really great way of showcasing how the circular economy principles can work in practice for both businesses but also policymakers. So those are the cross-cutting themes. We also set out some recommendations for all the key actors across London, which I won't go through today, but there were 3 key recommendations for the Mayor of London and the Greater London Authority. And those were that the Mayor takes a leadership role in the acceleration of the circular economy and sets a vision for London, that the Greater London Authority Group seeks to procure its goods and services in a way which develops the market for circular goods and services, and finally that the Mayor incorporates circular economy into his main strategic documents such as the London Plan and the London Environment Strategy and many others. So that's a bit about the circular economy route map or plan that we launched back in 2017. But as I mentioned before, we've actually developed our thinking since then to look at not just the link between the circular economy and waste reduction, but also the circular economy and emission reduction. So in London, the mayor and its boroughs have got very ambitious objectives to reduce carbon emissions, and while we understood how the circular economy could support our waste reduction targets, that understanding of how the circular economy can reduce emissions wasn't really clear to us. And so we needed the evidence and to develop an understanding as a city of the relationship between material flows, their carbon impact, and the hotspots and where we should intervene. And so what we've done is we've developed or started to develop an analytical framework to link the flow of materials within London to their greenhouse gas emissions throughout their life cycle. And we've actually piloted this analytical framework for food, which was very successful. We launched it at COP26 back in November 2021. And that has led to a series of actions, and we're currently replicating this approach for textiles as we speak, and hope to do the same for plastics, built environment, and electricals. And essentially what we've found by doing this research is that when you focus on emissions rather than waste solely, the areas of focus and the activities that we have started to implement change slightly. So when you look at waste, as a city, we'd spend a lot of time looking at recycling and how we can improve recycling targets. But actually, when we look at emissions, we start to think a bit more about how we can change consumption patterns or the way we consume products and services. And so to support this research and actually put it into practice, we have a program called the One World Living Program, which is essentially where boroughs have been appointed to develop and implement actions in the electricals, food, plastics and textile sectors with an aim to reduce consumption-based emissions across London by around 2/3 by 2030. And one really great example, if I can move the screen along. It suddenly stopped. Oh, there we go. One great example is the Food Flagship Initiative, which is an initiative supported by the Mayor of London, London, and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And through that initiative, we produced some research into food material flows, which showed the potential for London to reduce consumption-based emissions by up to 31% a year. And what we found was that this can be done by both reducing food loss and waste across the supply chain, but more importantly, to shift towards a more healthy and sustainable diet. And these findings created a renewed focus on the vital role that food has to play in the climate crisis and the importance of looking at the consumption of animal-based products, where food is produced, as well as the volume of food waste in the city and how we can tackle that. So from this research, we are currently delivering numerous interventions. I think about 20 interventions delivered through the Food Flagship Initiative, and I won't go through them all, but they range a variety of initiatives. With some examples here, we have an environmental health practitioner training where we're actually training environmental health practitioners to educate hospitality businesses in London about their food waste, and we're monitoring the food waste reduction there to see if it's something we want to scale up, because it's currently just being piloted in one borough. We have established a circular food procurement working group where we're bringing London boroughs together to commit to reducing both their emissions as well as reducing food waste within the food they procure in sort of things like schools. A food waste minimization pilot where we're working with apps, Olio and Kitch, and we're promoting the use of those apps in one London borough to encourage food sharing between neighbours and thinking a bit more about how you plan your meals. So that's an example of the work that we're doing on food, and to sort of close off, looking at the work that we've done in London to produce a plan, but also the thinking that we've done since then. And we have 3 key recommendations for Milan and other cities that are looking to develop their own circular economy plan. And the first one is that we believe a circular economy plan should be designed with key stakeholders from local government, businesses, research bodies, and many others. But I think what's really key, and was already alluded to in a previous presentation, that it's really important to involve all departments across local government, so not just speaking to the waste teams, but also those in procurement, housing, food, etc., so that circular economy is really embedded across local government, and then that will help embed it right across the supply chain. Secondly, that the key sectors of focus need to be identified, and the plan needs to be broken down with sector-specific actions and recommendations. So one activity will work for one sector, won't necessarily work for another. And then finally, from our experience, the plan needs to be evidence-based and focused on consumption-based emissions, as well as looking at waste and recycling, because when you do that, your activities and actions do change. So that's everything from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you also for closing with some recommendations, which I think would be really helpful. I can add to that yeah, we don't have so many borers, but we do have 9 borers. And we started off this project also thinking about how the circular economies connects with the 15-minute city concept. And some of the examples that you gave really give the sense that initiatives can start on a borough level and not necessarily go immediately on a city level. So I think this is also very interesting for us. Thank you so much. Alison, that's you now. So Alison is the Senior Director in the Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. And Glasgow as a city has a plan in place for the circular economy. It's actually quite known, very often cited as a good plan. But it's very interesting to have you here as you deal with partnerships and with a community of companies. So how businesses actually contribute to also changing, let's say, the face and the policies in a city. And I'm very interested to know about concrete examples. You have a story of an 8 years journey to tell in 10 minutes, which is very difficult. But I know that even in such a short version, this will be absolutely inspiring for us. So thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Wow, thank you very much, Leah. And I have to just say that just being in Milan and seeing what you guys have pulled together today and all the different marketplace participants, that gave me such a boost. And sometimes this is a really hard journey, is what I'm going to start by saying. And to get the inspiration that you see in the room and the energy that you are all bringing to this vision and mission, really well done. I would like to just start with that. So as Leah said, we've been at this for 8 years now. We are by no means perfect in any way, and it's a real privilege to be sitting alongside London and Amsterdam. So much of the inspiration of what we've tried to do in Glasgow has come from them. So first, may I say, our chambers in the UK are different from mainland Europe in that we're voluntary organisations. So Glasgow Chamber of Commerce was set up in 1783. We're the oldest English language speaking chamber in the world. And we're all about business and the voice of business in the city. And this kind of happened for me in an organic way, as is often the way with things in life. When I met with the Chief Executive of Zero Waste Scotland, who are our equivalent, if you like, of Re-London in terms of the public sector organisation, who specialise in circular economy. And at that time, he'd been out to see in Amsterdam the circular economy, and the then Chief Exec at the time said, "Why are you only looking at sectors? Why are you not looking at cities?" And then a whole conversation flowed from that, because Ian sat with the expertise in the circular economy and waste management and all of those good things, and we were sitting with the expertise of business, which is cross-sectoral, everything from airports to business startups, universities, triple helix stuff. So we came in the room with that really embedded stakeholder relationship to bring to the table in terms of how the city operates. So I am going to whistle through this. I speak quite quickly anyway, and as Josh said at the beginning, if I'm going too fast...
Not too quickly.
If I'm going too fast, you can just say it's okay to slow down a little. So the journey, 8 years, 10 minutes. Here we go. So we started just before the end of 2014, 2015, and we did a city scan. And the circular economy in the Netherlands was our first partner, as I've mentioned, and we basically copied what Amsterdam had done. Amsterdam had done the first city scan to the best of our knowledge, and in simple terms, we looked at what was going in and what was going out. You know, I like to keep things simple because it gets quite complicated after a while. And this is a whole economic model move, as you all know in this room, so we're trying to keep it simple. We looked at the flows, and we had 3 main areas, but we decided to focus on manufacturing. Our full Sunday name is Glasgow Chamber of Commerce and Manufacturers. So we looked at manufacturing. It fitted with our industrial heritage as a city. We saw the opportunity in terms of climate change coming very vigorously, although not quite so many people were listening at that time. And we went straight in with let's try and get Glasgow to become a circular city, which is what we're all aiming for. Now, at that point in time, because we're a membership organisation and we represent 1,200 odd businesses, from airports to entirely circular businesses, innovation was the line that felt best for us to pursue in this, and it also meant we could move it away from that bit that Josh mentioned at the beginning. The natural thing that everybody talks about is waste streams recycling, and it's the last bit that we would want people to do. So innovation and future-proofing your business, it gets people motivated for a start. People want to get out of bed to do good stuff. They don't want to be told off. It's like kids sitting on a naughty step. So our role is convening business, storytelling through case studies, and again, homage to Amsterdam in particular. We brought over Delta Developments, Mud Jeans, hotels. We brought in Fairphone. We had all different sector models to inspire discussions that were going on. And as that momentum increased, obviously the base of population in Glasgow increased as we went along that way. We also got involved in a lot of policy, and I'll come to that later. But the Coalition of the Willing was mentioned, I think, by Rosemary. Absolutely cannot do it without a bunch of leaders, right? Now, you also need in those leaders people with a bit of sass, okay? It takes tons of energy and tenacity and resilience and keep going and all the hurdles, and there's more hurdles, and then there's that person in that department that doesn't like that. You've got to really keep that opportunistic head on. So I'm not going to go through all the partners here, but you see we've obviously got London as a partner now. We met Wayne in Oslo when we were all out exchanging views at Urban Futures, and I said we need to do business with that man because he was talking about all his business startups in London, and I thought that's exactly what we need to be doing. Our first success was bizarrely waste bread, turning it into low alcohol craft beer. That seemed to really capture the imagination and got tons and tons of exposure, which made people go, oh, what is this thing then? What is this circular economy thing? And in Glasgow, we had to be kind of slowly, there's this thing, we think this is pretty cool, we think this is good for the city, it's good for the economy, it's good for everybody in the city and the economy. Let's just have a chat and bring this in the room. That helped immensely. We've got our website, funnily enough, Circular Glasgow, go look at it. There's a kind of summary of the story so far on there, which will fast track some of the 8 years worth of stuff. So I'm not going to go into that in terms of any detail, apart from to say that specific case studies, specific actions, Sarah's just mentioned having specific actions by sector. We did a report which came out at the beginning of last year looking at our priority sectors and exact specific examples that businesses could take to move forward in that specific sector. To to some extent, we seem to kind of get attention because we're leading from business rather than the local municipality. Now, again, that doesn't mean to say we're getting it all right. There's 3.5 people in the team in the chamber, just to be clear, to give you an idea of scale on this. But on the back of that, and working with the local authority and the other partners, for better or worse, we ended up in the Circular's finalists, which is the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leader Awards, because we were business-led. Ellen MacArthur Foundation's used us as a case study, and we're super proud to be part of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation network. And Josh and his team are going to be working really closely with him now moving forward, and various other case studies that we were used as. At the end of 2019, we came careering in with our Circular Glasgow network, which is a really key point. That network is so important to us, and even more so than ever now. And a message in this is semi-circular is fantastic. Do not get bogged down in the it has to be perfect straight away. Start. There's nuances. Old businesses can start and become creatively circular on a journey. Now, in that, we launched it in partnership with IKEA and our partnership with London at that particular night. And then very quickly after that, we went into the pandemic. So our whole chamber team went into active listening mode because business was on its knees. It was absolutely horrendous. You don't need us to tell you that. You lived through it too. But in the active listening came some really cool stuff. And I'll talk a bit about that tomorrow in terms of some of the very practical examples that we'd love to share with you. If you look to where we're at now, we kind of rebooted our actual engagement face-to-face, and it is brilliant to be here in person last year. And then just 2 weeks ago, we finally got to premiere our Challenge the Gap movie, which we co-commissioned with Waterbear from the Netherlands. And if you've not heard of Waterbear, it's like Netflix for nature, really cool platform. They've done lots of different films with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, one of our own businesses, ACS Clothing is one of the films. I'll talk about that tomorrow. We looked at Challenge the Gap. Circular Economy do the Circularity Gap Report globally. We're 8.6 circular at the moment in global terms. It's not looking too great. There's a long way to go. And what we wanted to do was get out of the echo chamber, because one of the things we'd been told by many of our own Circular Glasgow ambassadors was we need to talk out with this really impassioned, closed community. So we commissioned that film to do just that. And again, the theme was innovation. So we used 3 specific examples of different businesses. Importantly, one was a 200-year-old corporate, the Scottish Leather Group. I'll talk about them tomorrow. Second one was an SME, Dear Green Coffee. And the third one was a startup. And they were all really innovative in their business models, because that's what we wanted to get over to people, to make people excited that this is something that they should do. So we're going to scale that network. That's really important. There's loads of opportunities within that. And then if we take it way back out into the route map, I'm not going to go into the route map detail here today, but in 2018 there was a circular hotspot in Scotland. And at that point, we work in partnership with our local municipality very closely. And we said, look, there's a real opportunity for you globally to stick a mast in the sand here on circular economy. And they then committed to do a circular route map for the city. It was published in 2020, and it is active, and there's lots of work to be done in that. But in parallel to that, and then we run into COP, the city has also pulled together a 30 billion green investment portfolio to help the city realise its 2 desperately scary targets. The first of which is we want to be carbon neutral by 2030, and we want to be a circular city by 2045. Those are really massive, big, ambitious targets. So those 2 work concurrently and in parallel, and I think there's a really interesting message about how a city attracts investment into the city to actually help the city realise its actual climate targets. Because see all the retrofitting, particularly in amazing cities like Milan and Glasgow at industrial heritage, huge investment is going to be required to make some of that transition in the built environment. I'll touch briefly on COP in terms of circular economy. We all felt it didn't get talked about enough in COP26. It was great to see business hugely engaged. Our little chamber played a massive role in terms of voice of business and engagement. We get involved in the partnership campaigns with London, with Ellen MacArthur Foundation and Circular Economy on if you want to fix the climate, you have to fix the economy. And then from a fashion point of view, I will just say that Water Bear, again, the platform, did this really cool thing in London and basically designed we have a icon in Scotland called Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, and they decided to caricaturise that and create Messi, and they made her out of hundreds of pairs of denims, which was really cool, and it was situated in Mayfair as part of a campaign to say, please, let's take this circular economy transition really seriously. My last point I'll make in terms of thinking about things slightly differently is about education and the next generation of the workforce that's coming through and how those young people will help to change our economies and our sectors. Now, I was very fortunate because alongside Circular Glasgow, we also do a lot of work in youth employability, and we merged those agendas to give birth to what we called My Climate Path. And My Climate Path was basically a 10-part programme, including circular hackathons, working with McDonald's to design net zero restaurants online using digital technologies, and so on. And it was a 10-point programme. At the last day of COP, we had a sustainable fashion show with 250 young people and 26 businesses in the room. Since then, 4,000 young people have been engaged in these climate future businesses in terms of what they're doing with circular and renewables transition in the round. And there's over 60 of these businesses now paired with secondary schools across the whole of the City Glasgow region. And that kind of influence of what's coming through for businesses changing is going to be really, really important. Now, Leah asked me to just give you some top tips from what we thought. So I'll just go through these really briefly. First of all, I would say, this has been raised by others, do not get bogged down in writing strategies all the time. Strategists and beautiful economists love to write a perfect strategy. Get something down and get started, and you're doing that. So that's brilliant. That would be tip number one. Magic often happens at the cross-sector points. That's something definitely worth looking at. We've mentioned food today a lot. We've mentioned fashion and design. Those could be working concurrently here in Milan. I think there's some really interesting things that you could do. Coffee being made into clothes, oranges and fruit fibre being made into clothes, all kinds of crazy stuff that's coming through the system. Semi-circular, I've mentioned, do not get bogged down in the perfect solution. Semi-circular is great. Messaging, innovation and future-proofing your business, that's really motivational for businesses to get involved in. Naughty step, not so helpful. Bill McDonough of McDonough Innovation and Cradle to Cradle Design always says that, and it's so motivational hearing him speaking as we did at COP, because people want to get out of bed to do good stuff. They do. It's just the way people are. It's how we're wired. Leadership's really important, tenacity, opportunistic, but you're looking for a tribe. Gather a tribe, get a tribe in Milan. You need lots of people batting the drum for this. You really do. Get business engaged, which you're doing. Sharing good practice. This is everybody's game. So you need your academic institutions, you need your public institutions, you need all your businesses, corporates, SMEs, and startups, not just startups. The big policy levers have been mentioned this morning. Two I'll focus on would be planning and procurement. If you can incentivize those alone, you will make absolutely gargantuan shifts. We're not there yet, but that's what we're actually lobbying for. Embedding in education. And then last but by no means, Josh mentioned this at the beginning, design is key. Well, oh my goodness, we're in Milan. What are you guys absolutely brilliant at amongst many other things? Design. You're talking about fashion and design. As it so happens, Glasgow also has an interesting heritage in design. We've not got this right yet either, but maybe there's an opportunity to co-create solutions using the creative economy to come up with the new solutions, not just within the sector that you're working in, but across the built environment, across some of the other different priority sectors. And I will stop at that. But thank you so much for inviting us over. It's been brilliant to be here, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Alison. And thank you also for those final tips, which are very precious. Actually, I'm going to ask you a copy of this page to use those tips. And I'm going to use the remaining time, because you have all been fantastic keeping your timing, and asking also the four of you for some tips for Milan. So we have here the municipality, our community of makers, producers, the academics. So we have a really nice public that can listen to you and to learn from your experience. So if you had to summarize or to choose some tips and give it to us in 2 minutes each, that would be fantastic.
Can I start? Yeah. My experience is that because of the Reflow project, we could do so much. So we had a lot of demonstrations of what we could do, that the government doesn't interfere so much. Because a government can make also something slow. And we don't have the time to be slow. So by doing and to be this coalition of the willings, tomorrow also Tami will speak here. He's really one of the willings. I'm not taking away his talk, but go tomorrow to listen to Tami as well. And to think also crossover, and I'm very proud about the project of this city pass we have with people. The sustainability in the Dutch language, the translation of it is duurzaam, and duur is also expensive. So a lot of people think always that sustainability is also expensive, and we hear many times, and yes, it is more expensive because we get used to have so cheap clothes. So for €2, when you see a T-shirt of €2, it's not possible. Someone has to pay the price. And by starting to rethink what you revalue, what you have already in your closet, by repairing, we cross over different kind of departments in the city. Economics, because the tailors, they don't earn so much money. The people, we have a department to help people with less income, and we help them also to turn into to join the circular economy as well, to motivate to repair their clothes, and they help us also because we find less textile in our waste. So that are 3 departments. What the effect is. And the 3 departments are very happy.
Thank you. Sarah?
Great. I think the main takeaway from London is not just getting bogged down in looking at waste reduction and recycling. So, for example, taking the fashion sector, thinking about all the different actions that we can take to reduce our impact as a city. So if you're looking at the production of a garment, thinking about the fibre types that you're using, that they're low impact, that they're recycled and recyclable, that you look at the different ways of consuming textiles. So we don't always need to own our clothes. We can share, we can rent, we can buy second-hand, and thinking about the different ways that we consume. And then, of course, thinking about how we then dispose, not just throwing everything away, but how we stop that from being thrown away in the first place, so supporting that redistribution across the city. So I think that's something that we've really taken on board, which is thinking about the wider circular economy and the fact that we need all these different actions to support our transition and not to get too bogged down on recycling rates.
Thank you. Eileen?
I suppose my key takeaway and recommendation is to start acting, to start testing, to start experimenting. Strategizing and planning is important, but we really do need to start acting. And that culture of experimentation and testing is really important. Not to be afraid of failure. It's okay to fail. Failing is much better than standing still and doing nothing. So, yeah, I think it's to act and experiment.
Thank you. Josh?
Thank you. I love the term coalition of the willing, I always say that, so I think just get going there. But I would probably stress, if we are going to shift the paradigm of linear to circular, we need to shift mindsets. I think the first practical thing is map the system, and I really like Roos's map of all the existing circular businesses. That's something you could do tomorrow. Like, you could map all the repair, reuse services that you already have in the city and celebrate them. The second bit, I think, in terms of acting, is to go hard, go fast, go quick, is to concentrate action in one place. So even the city can be overwhelming, and what we are thinking about more and more at the foundation is to make the transition more tangible. We need to actually go door to door of citizens, and actually, rather than having a patchwork of demonstrations across the city, let's have all of those demonstrations in one neighborhood or one street, and actually figure out how they all work together. Because at the moment, we're still in this in-between phase. So map the system and concentrated action in one neighborhood.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you for being here and for sharing your experience with us. I think that we have learned a lot, but we also need some time to take things in. Fortunately, you're going to stay also in this time, and I also let the public know that you are here if there are any other questions or comment. So first of all, a round of applause. E passerò all'italiano per dirvi quello che succederà qui domani. Abbiamo una giornata piena di attività diverse, si aprono le porte alle 10 del mattino, la stanza 1400 è sempre attiva con le esposizioni di prodotti molto interessanti, molto belli da toccare, da capire al volo. Avremo nella learning room dei laboratori, la mattina laboratori per i bambini e poi al pomeriggio laboratori per tutti, dove si può proprio provare anche a capire attraverso le mani. E mentre qui alle 11 del mattino avremo un'altra sessione internazionale dove andremo a vedere degli esempi concreti, imparare proprio da progetti che sono stati fatti in città diverse, e poi 6 sessioni di talk locali che succederanno sia qui che nell'auditorium, sempre per dare l'idea di quello che sta succedendo a livello locale. Per cui io vi ringrazio molto, vi aspetto anche domani e spero che rimanete adesso anche per prendere un aperitivo, che l'ora è giusta. Grazie.